We just celebrated Thai Pongal. But during this time, Tamil communities in South India also celebrate Mattu Pongal, a celebration of cattle. They are bathed, their horns are polished and painted in bright colors, and garlands are placed around their neck because the bull, which is what Mattu means, is integral for a good harvest. Ahead on the show, a tech-enabled Sri Lanka, women in 2025, and a ceramicist's love affair with nature. Kaleidoscope is on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn, so make sure to subscribe, follow, and like us for more. A massive thank you to our brilliant partners on the show, Srilanka Life, CDB, and The Daily Morning.
CDB Hybrid Leasing. Enjoy exclusive interest rate and much more for hybrids, plug-in hybrids, and EV vehicles.
Looking back at the week that was on CDB Snapshot, the numbers are in. The Inland Revenue Department collects over 1.9 billion rupees, the highest ever tax revenue. That's in 2024. Sri Lanka earns approximately 3.17 billion US dollars from tourism in 2024. The Colombo port is set to surpass 9 million 20-foot equivalent units in 2025. Abeywardene Kandalama, Sri Lanka's first entirely women-run resort, opens its doors. 2024 was indeed the warmest year on record at about 1.55 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels. Historical treasures hidden since World War II are found in a cathedral's crypts in Lithuania. A 5-month-old gorilla is discovered in a box on a flight to Thailand and is rescued.
You focus on your goals. We will take care of the risks. Srilanka Life.
Welcome, this is Srilanka Life News Capsule. In 2023, Sri Lanka's female labour force participation was 32.1%, while the male rate of participation was 71.9%. In fact, 2024's female labour force participation rate is even lower, and there isn't a definite answer as to why. Here to explain the whys and wherefores of the problem is the chairperson of the Women's Chamber of Industry and Commerce Sri Lanka, Gayani Alwis. What are your observations of women and their place in the theatre of the economy?
Women plays a huge role anyway, so that has been really understood. But having said that, the role is multifaceted, but the narrative is so complex. In Sri Lanka, the latest issue is that the female labour force participation has dropped down to 29.6, which is all-time low. So we need to really understand that and see what we need to do.
Do you think the women's lot has changed in any way? Are we going to see better times for women?
I feel the situation will improve because the awareness is getting created, and especially the new generation, the millennials and all of that, and they really look at this, they don't look at gender like our generation used to look at, right? So now I think because of that, the gender is not an issue for them. So in that context, there will be positive times. But having said that, in Sri Lanka, more women are getting educated now. If you look at all the universities, except for 2 disciplines, 60% of the women are the ones that are coming out of universities. But having said that, although we have higher number of women coming out of the universities, but female labour force participation is going down. That's a cause for concern, which are, as I mentioned earlier. But awareness is getting created. Government is really working on it. The fact that we now have a female Prime Minister in the country and also the highest ever female parliamentary representation. I hope for better times ahead for us. Women in decision-making positions, especially at the legislature level, they will always look at things from a gender lens. Because very often we don't have gender disaggregated data, we don't look at things, policies that are of importance to women. So at least as a woman, we hope that this lot will really look at these things from that angle.
Is the country, is the world serious about empowering women? What is your frank opinion?
I think we need to start with these statistics to understand the gravity of the problem. Globally, if you look at the latest global gender gap report, it will take 134 years to bridge the gender gap. It will not happen in our lifetime. But I, for one, look at that in a positive way, because if there's a gap, there's an opportunity for us also to do something. So there have been many instances where a lot of studies and research have been done on the challenges faced by women. So if you really look at the biggest items are that the policy landscape. We need to look at the laws and regulations which should be conducive to women, especially the maternal benefits. Second thing is about the education aspect. There is a lot of time waiting for you to before you get into the next stage after O-level, A-level. So then by the time you get out of universities or schools and universities, you are in the marriageable age. So that is another challenge. So we need to understand, you need to give opportunity for women to work before they look at other options. The third thing is the transportation option. So we need to have a very safe transportation. And finally, we need to look at the societal pressures, sensitizing the society and also look at how do you really look at cultural problems and all of that, and make everyone understand, females or males both bring different skill set to the table. So having both of them will really is good to the business as well as to the economy as well.
Let's take a look at the markets this week. After a slight downward correction in the middle of the holiday shortened work week, the all share price index at the Colombo Stock Exchange continued to move upwards. Oil prices finally moved up over $80 per barrel as news broke on the Biden administration's sanctions on Russia, cold temperatures across the Atlantic basin, and worries about US inflation. Gold continued to trade close to $2,700 per ounce, supported by central banks buying the precious metal and traders looking on it as a safe haven investment. The future is here. Chinese researchers develop a spherical robot that can operate on land and in water to work alongside the police in combat and apprehension. Digitalization has been something of a metric to measure Sri Lanka's futuristic development. In fact, Sri Lanka's government has made digitalization a national priority, making Sri Lanka undergo a comprehensive digital transformation within the next 3 years. With a national digital strategy in place for 2030 to improve our economic competitiveness, public services, to create jobs and to promote sustainability, we wonder why it took so long for Sri Lanka to jump on the tech bandwagon. With me today is tech entrepreneur with 3 decades of experience who has founded several tech ventures and built many tech products. Harsha Purasinghe is on the show today. Harsha, it seems to me that a lot of great things are happening in the tech space here in Sri Lanka. What are you seeing of Sri Lanka's tech space?
What I can see right now is, again, the companies are building the momentum, and I can see that given the stability in the political ecosystem, a very strong, thriving tech ecosystem emerging. So if you look at right now, I can see there's a lot of startups emerging in sectors that we never envisioned, like of agri-tech. Last week I had the pleasure of witnessing some latest agri-tech startups of Sri Lanka. So there's lots of startups emerging. And also I see, if you look at mature startups going IPO and doing the exits, like what we witnessed SpeakMe, I mean, that's a phenomenal benchmark or a milestone for Sri Lankan tech landscape to see a gigantic IPO. And also from the global front, we can see lots of Sri Lankan companies making waves in the global arena. So given the stability in the macroeconomic conditions, I see a very thriving, positive tech ecosystem emerging now.
What can we capitalize on, but actually what stops us from capitalizing on these?
One of the driving force behind tech sector has been our talent pool. Continuously, Sri Lanka has been producing fantastic talent. That's something that we need to capitalize on. And also our geographic location, where we can use Sri Lanka as a hub for digital service innovation. So that's where we can capitalize on. On the other side, what is stopping is as you know, every now and then we get hit with some incident. From 2019, I don't need to tell you, we just came out of a civil war, then we had multiple catastrophes, one after another. So the instability is the one which has caused our tech industry to flourish. But given now we see, hopefully we see a stable economic condition and political conditions, I am very optimistic we can see a brighter future for our industry.
So what are the main initiatives Sri Lanka can implement to put us on par with the rest of the world, especially our neighbor India?
If you really look at one of the things Sri Lanka has to do is to continuously invest in digital infrastructure. We need to create a broad-based, wider adoption of broadband and make it inclusive, cost-effective. We need to continue to invest in that. And then also we need to invest in digital public infrastructure. And also we need to establish some of these acts like the Cybersecurity Act, Data Protection Act needs to be enforced as planned after March 31st. And also we need to set up a national AI policy and make sure that AI be part of our overall digital economic growth in the future.
Given that Sri Lanka is on a digitalization path, what are we going to see in the future?
Digital payments taking off, and also hopefully we will see our citizens transitioning into digitally literate population. They will start engaging with various public services to private services digitally. So we have some interesting plans in place to enable this dynamic transition to a digital economy. Also, from an industry point of view, Sri Lanka can now position ourselves as a place for digital services innovation in Asia, given our strategic location in South Asia.
What is your vision for a tech-enabled Sri Lanka?
Sri Lanka always had a very literate population. I want to see all our citizens digitally literate in the future and set an example to the whole world. Sri Lankan digital literacy rate is also over 90%, like our literate rate which we used to boast about. Then Sri Lanka becoming a center for digital services innovation, IP innovation, product innovation. Globally notable products are being built in this country. And also our traditional industries transitioning with digital technology to become more competitive and more relevant to the global competitive landscape. So overall, I would like to see Sri Lanka's digital economy contributes to GDP growth as an overall driver.
In Remnants, which was recently held in the Barefoot Gallery, Asela Abeywardene uses ceramic clay, her medium, to look at what remains in our world as our natural resources, values and connections to our ancestors fade away.
So remnants represent how I relate to where I live, and because it's ancestral property, so what remains of the natural environment as well as my memory. I have used like very geographical looking forms and also material to kind of resemble earth and water. Here I have tried to show how the encroachment of natural resources are taking place. Basically how the water is depleting, urbanization is taking over the natural kind of environment. In Sri Lanka, when you take village life, pond or the usual well, we used to call it, used to be a big part of social, cultural, cohesiveness also. Because I remember as a child how people used to use those wells and how they used to kind of, it was like more like a cultural thing where they would get together near the well. So now those ponds are almost no longer there.
So here's wishing you a good week ahead. We'll be back next week.